All right, hello and welcome everybody to the final round here at the Charlie's Collectible Day 1, Round 7 of 9. The next two rounds will be tomorrow, followed by the top 8. First of all, everyone, thanks for joining us here on Twitch, YouTube, and if you're watching another stream, thank you for viewing as well. I'm Loaf, I'm here with Jebas. How's it going, Jebas?
It's been going very well. We've had a pretty good mix of matchups today. Even some of the mirrors have had sort of different flavors, and it's always good to see strong players playing good games.
Yeah, so on stream here we have Saucekay, who was an original 20 Lorcana player. Seems like he took a bit of a hiatus, but he's back and he's at the top tables here at X1.
It's like on Sapphire Steel.
Yeah, paired up against Ruby Sapphire, which we've been seeing a lot of today. A lot of different versions running around and a lot of aggro at the top tables that we just haven't seen as well.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of the aggro decks running around, and it really does feel like some of these Sapphire lists just don't have the type of removal to deal with go wide sort of strategies, and that is probably serving them very well. So I think we'll see them quite a bit tomorrow.
Yeah, and we do also have on the right-hand side of the screen Hector from Southside Gaming representing at X1 as well, closing out day 1 strong.
All right, our Ruby Sapphire doing a 5-card altar here. Looks like maybe 5 for our Sapphire Steel as well. Now, these Sapphire decks, especially now that we have both Tipo and Sail, generally are able to have a much better inkable count than maybe they did in the past. They can afford to mulligan a little bit more looking for their ramp. So a strong altar to find that 2-drop ramp, send back any uninkables, any really high-cost cards that you want later, but not necessarily early on.
Yeah, I think we've seen that the consistency of these decks, along with the flexibility of our ink counts, cards that let you ink uninkables, really allows the altars to be much more flexible, much more friendly. You're really worried about just getting a good opening hand and progressing into the late game, which is what these decks do best.
Now this looks like Hector is on likely a shark flavor of Ruby Sapphire, given that we just saw a Pirate's Life be the first inkable. Runs out the Popsicle, pretty standard line, very good for Ruby Sapphire. Certainly exactly what they need. More so than, it's a lot less impressive when Sapphire Steel has the 1-drop, given that they have 8 of them instead of just the 4.
Well, and very fitting on the other side, we see Steel go into the Inkwell, a Fortisphere match the Popsicle, and Bell come on down.
All right. Sail into inking something here. Inking a Popsicle and running out Popsicle number 3. So that's 2 out, 1 in the Inkwell. 2 is a good number of Popsicles. It allows you to, if you're playing the Happy as a Clam new Tamatoa, that is the number that you would need to be able to get back, so.
Yeah, and we are seeing 3 for 3 Popsicles to Fortisphere in this Steel Ruby matchup.
So, Saucekay not playing that Sail this turn is very indicative of an awkward draw. Likely just very low on inkables and needed to dig deeper to find something that is more reasonable to be able to play here, given that they just are not ramping.
Yeah, trying to get a good look in the hand. We do see Let It Go join the Inkwell and Pete come down.
Pete is certainly not the strongest turn 3 play that I've ever seen out of Sapphire Steel. Now, this does threaten to challenge into this Flaversham, to take it out, which we know that Sapphire Steel struggles a little bit to deal with the 1/6 body. Compared with, Ruby Sapphire. Ruby has plenty of tools to deal with a 1/6, whereas both Sapphire and Steel struggle a little bit. The chip damage sometimes needs a 2-for-1, or in this case, a pair of 3/3s can take one out, but Hector just opting to simply cast another one and leave them both unexerted.
Yeah, and I really like this play from Hector because, to your point, these unexerted Hirams are in very little danger and will require multiple cards to be dealt with. Here we see Let the Storm Rage On, get 2 damage on the first Hiram.
And it looks like it's maybe going to be Zeus plus... No, we just play a Hiram of our own. Okay, there is a Zeus in hand, so that was an option to take one out, but opting just to draw a card and then cast our own Flaversham here.
Yeah, and in playing these matches yourself, how do you feel staring down the Hirams when there isn't an active item in play? We've seen 3 popsicles inked or played in this case. Some cards to consider would be how far I'll go, but how threatening are these Hirams, do you think?
It is very easy to get items back. Certainly with the new Happy as a Clam, that allows you to go find 2 items, so having targets for them is not unmanageable anymore. However, once they already have 2 Flavershams out and they're willing to just cast them, like we had a Flaversham already in play with the ability to quest to draw the 2 cards, and they opted to just play another one, which means that they likely even have a third copy. They're just trying to get rid of this glut of Flavershams in their hand. I would not worry about them at all, because I just don't feel like we have the luxury of worrying about them that much. Now, that being said, it's not like Strength is an amazing card in this matchup. Often, by the time that the bigger characters are coming down out of the Ruby side, you're going to not have a big board. You're really not going to have enough characters in play to, say, Strength a Sisu. You need 4 characters in play, like this Flaversham would be taken out if it was a Sisu or a Shift Sisu line in this case. So that is probably one of the less powerful cards, especially in this matchup. It is inkable, so that is another consideration, but if you are trying to threaten the Flavershams, if you think that is a high priority, then I think double casting or double singing it in this case is probably fine.
Yeah, and Hiram taking these early hits from Strength of the Raging Fire, Let the Storm Rage On, it makes it much more likely for your Tamatoa Happy as a Clams to survive. I mean, there's always the option of Zeus, but limiting the removal options from Saucekay's side and setting up for a better endgame is really where Hector's looking to be, and we see a brawl just to deal with the opposing Hiram.
Yeah. From the Ruby side of this matchup, you essentially want to make every Flaversham... I mean, this is just the case in almost all of these Sapphire-type mirrors. Any sort of Flaversham battle. You want Flaversham to be able to draw 2 cards, and 2 cards exactly. It's the one that is the enters battlefield, comes into play trigger, right? We've played Flaversham, we banished 1 item, and we drew 2 cards. You want to get rid of it immediately. And almost every Ruby card in your deck has the ability to do that. So as soon as it comes down, you get rid of it, problem solved. You limit the card advantage that they're getting, at least out of that avenue. We're in an okay spot from Hector's side. We have not used a lot of our cards. We still have a pretty big grip, and they're only at 3. Like, there has not been a lot of lore gaining going on, and we still have this Flaversham. If we just play the Happy as a Clam that's in our hand, play an item, we can quest and cash it in for another 2 cards. It looks like we might be what we're doing right now. This is why we wanted exactly 2 popsicles, because you can always banish them for essentially any reason if you want, and this allows us to now, pick up some additional cards if we want. It sort of
there is that
depends.
Tamatoa, like you called out, and
Yeah.
I like the way Hector's sequencing this. He's looking at the most cards possible before making his ink decision. He's really just playing very crisp this entire game, and it's no wonder he's sitting here at X1.
Those are some pretty good cards to pick up here. Now, Hector's list appears to be pretty interesting. So it does have the Pirate's Life, and, you know, Happy as a Clam, which we would expect. But there's not a lot of room for a ton of 6-drops in this deck, right? You can have some Pirate's Life, some Sharks, some, you know, Tamatoa, Happy as a Clams, but eventually you're going to sort of run out of room for more 6-drops, right? I wonder what the number choice was on these different cards. You know, if we have a lot of Maui Sharks, if we just have a couple of them. There's the Zeus taking out the Tamatoa. Not a big surprise, actually. It is pretty common now, I think, for Zeus to be the major removal that Steel has for that card, being a 4/5. Now we see today our first workshop. Well, we did see one briefly in the second matchup area, but the workshop is a very, very powerful card in these matchups.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the items coming into play for free or coming to play for very cheap. This is a engine all on its own, and honestly, Hector B-prepping here gives
Isn't that
Saucekay
bad?
some breathing room and allows him to potentially draw some cards this next turn.
It really doesn't hurt Saucekay that badly. I mean, there weren't that many characters in play, but it's kind of what Hector has to do to keep pace with what's going on here. I wonder if Saucekay is playing an Oswald list and we just have not seen Oswald yet.
Yeah, there is.
Pre-inking there makes it kind of unlikely. At least not in hand, anyway.
And was that an ink and pass that we just saw from Saucekay?
I think so. Ugh. Don't like that. I wonder what's in hand if we're just doing ink pass. We have a lot of cards in hand. A couple of items, too. I wonder.
Taking a look at the discard pile for Saucekay, I do like how Hector has been playing this. The Be Prepared, although it wasn't a substantial board that Saucekay had, we do see an extra copy in Hector's hand, and sometimes just getting 7 ink, you know, sunk into your game.
Looks like there's a Zeus, and an 8-drop Tamatoa in hand. Unsure what else, though. But having a hand of removal and 8-drops certainly would make sense, given just the do nothing and pass. Certainly, if we had any item, maybe other than exactly Lucky Dime, because we want to draw a card with it, we would have probably done that. Oh, we have a Bell as well, so that makes sense. So we're going to go grab Fortisphere, and then now next turn we are set up to be able to follow up the likely cleared Tamatoa with drawing a handful of new cards. And especially since Hector has not really progressed the board state to an, huge amount of pressure, we probably have time to draw a few cards and rumble in the game. Now, if our Sapphire Steel player does not have anything like Aerial or multiple dimes, this is still going to be a pretty tough battle, given that, Sisu can take out a lot of the threats, especially with the coil. There's multiple coils. Almost any threat can be pretty easily dealt with. Again, this is just a single coil ink to deal with the Tamatoa. That's kind of rough. It allows them to develop a little bit. I wouldn't imagine cracking this coil to draw cards. We have plenty of cards in hand. Yeah, we're going to leave it in play. Nope, opts to draw cards. Okay.
Yeah,
perhaps because we have another one?
Yep.
Yeah.
We have
just looking
backup.
for another ink. Ops to Inca Flaversham, again, we have plenty of cards in hand, so... Alright, draws a card, decides to draw another card. Probably gonna run out that same play again. Draw a card, draw a card. Looks like we ripped a Scrooge, so we're likely gonna be able to cast that. Do this, draw a card. Let's tap, exert 4 items to play a Scrooge. Look at the bottom 4 cards of the deck and rearrange them in any order.
That must be the play we've seen most this weekend, I think. The Scrooge and...
that happened a lot when Ariel, the song Singer 5 Ariel, that also happened a lot. It was look at some cards, put them on the bottom, gain no value out of it, It's fine. It gets value often enough that it's still a worthwhile card to play, but it is a very similar type of feeling when you brick. It hits probably just as often as it misses. But it also was cast for free, so I think they'll survive.
Yeah, so we do have Hector developing that wide board that Sapphire Steel has trouble dealing with. We've got the coil online for any future threats, and I'm curious to see what kind of engine Saucekay has in his deck that could bring him back from this. I mean, this is the first Maurice's Workshop we've seen, so he can filter through his deck tremendously quick, but the clock has been set by Hector, and...
Alright, so...
turns left for Saucekay.
What we're seeing here is leveraging the amount of cards in hand in combination with the Sapphire Coil to, drink the Scrooge, run out a big Sisu to put more pressure on the board. Even the small Sisu here is a nod to likely, Hector's played this matchup all day and has realized that they just don't have in Sapphire Steel a great solution to the problem of they got a bunch of things in play. They're not playing swords, they're not playing Tinkerbells, Bagheeras, really anything that can deal with a wide board. So if you just play a handful of things and then just keep questing with them, that's good enough a lot of the time. They do sort of play like a combo deck in some aspects where they can like run out a crab, use the crab, the happy as a clam to put a dime into play, use that dime with a freshly played large Tamatoa just to gain a lot of lore kind of out of nowhere. And we have a lot of items in play to angle towards that. Zeus taking out one of the bigger threats, which was that Sisu.
Yeah, a pretty good turn from Saucekay, but it might be a little too late. It does feel like the coil is online. And there's that Maui Shark you were talking about, and I agree with you. I'm interested to see the numbers of this list.
I think that there's another shark in hand as well. I mean, the Happy as a Clam really doesn't need huge numbers for it to be a good card. It's still something that when you draw it is going to pick up a couple of cards, on turn 5 or 6, but it'll also do it on turn 9 or 12. Just runs out double shark.
Yeah, and I have a feeling Medusa's about to be singing
Let It Go, which is just as problematic as anything here. It gains 2 lore immediately, quest out, gain another 3, and this looks pretty over. Yeah,
to pick them up. Now, in between games here, who do you think is winning the flavor war? On Saucekay's side, we had the Karibos constantly switching between attack and defense mode.
True.
Whereas Hector, I believe, one-piece sleeves?
I would have to look at them again, but I thought that was My Hero Academia. But I could be wrong. Wasn't looking too close at the sleeves. Yeah, that's definitely My Hero Academia. So, is it the anime sleeves or the anime / Yu-Gi-Oh run out? You know, it's tough. One's a little more modern, I would say. And the other one is a callback to simpler times, perhaps. I generally
Saucekay coming back from those earlier sets, bringing some old friends with him.
Yeah, I generally tend to err on the side of any picture sleeve is where I would lean towards. And the only reason for that is it makes using those as your inkwell much easier to identify just in general what the face-up part of your deck is. You know, are your things tapped one particular direction, etc.
Right.
So I usually err towards some sort of sleeves with art on them. I've been using some older Disney licensed ones that I like quite a bit.
We've got some lore coming from the Twitch chat. Apparently, Hector went away from the anime sleeves, but a 1-2 start swapped him right back.
Makes sense. Why change what's working, you know? Alright, a quick alter here. Another 5 cards from Saucekay.
Yeah, and like you called out in that first game, I'm curious to see if we will see Oswald potentially this game. Another engine along with Maurice's workshop that can really accelerate the Sapphire Steel colors to a really explosive draw. We saw pretty much everything but.
Yeah, Oswald in the first week or two of set 7 really had a lot of popularity. I think because players maybe didn't have a lot of answers for them at the time, so then you get an Oswald or two in play, you ink, twice in a turn and flip up 4 cards or whatever. It can go pretty crazy. But I feel like now there are a lot more answers that players are more willing to hold on to out of respect for a card like that, because it definitely can just steal a game pretty easily.
Yeah, and here we see another Force Sphere on 1 for Saucekay.
You can get Fishbone Quill. I appreciate the thought of immediately inking a Flabbersham and then realizing, oh wait, I'm going to need that to win. Goes back to it anyway. Ink's happy as a clam. I think it's fine. I see why Hector was considering getting rid of the Flabbershams. There are no popsicles, which makes it certainly a lot worse.
Saucekay starting with the traditional 1-2 here.
Fortisphere into Tipo. This is the classic from a couple of sets ago. And now with the third, is that the third Flabbersham? With the third one, I would say it's probably likely that one will get inked here. People of our own, or are we going to go with Sail? I think it's Sail to draw a card to dig a little bit deeper to look for items, potentially. Found a Visions. Yeah. That Visions is probably going to come out at some point here to dig, looking for, likely a Popsicle. That would really unlock a lot of Hector's hand.
Yeah, this reminds me to Logan's game a couple of rounds ago, where these Hyrams aren't having an immediate impact on the game, but if the game goes long enough, he's got plenty of insurance to ride out the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that's why it's sort of making sure that you have like the resources available to be able to take care of a Flaversham. You know, it's not very hard for them to run away with the game if you don't respect that it's a card. So we did find a Vital Sphere. We get to use our turn 4, or turn 3 in this case, our 4-ink turn, to run out of Sisu, take out that opposing Flaversham, which, especially out of the Sapphire Steel deck, is even more dangerous because they have so many of the 1-drop items that draw you another card. Second Flaversham is problematic for us here.
Yeah, so both players are down a Hiram, one in the Inkwell for Hector, one in the discard for Saucekay. I would expect us to see Hector play his first onto the board.
If Hector has an answer to Flaversham, I would suspect that it's going to get used over playing a Flaversham here. So we're going to start with Visions, which I think is likely looking for either, in this case, possibly just that Sisu, or a Popsicle to set up for the following turn. I'm thinking that this Pirate's Life is going to get sent to the Inkwell. The Sisu is going to get played this turn,
look like
probably.
The hand for Hector was B Prep, Pirate's Life, Hiram.
Yep, there's the Sisu. We'll ink this Pirate's Life. Play the Sisu out, quest for 1. And hopefully there's not a third Flaversham, though Happy as a Clam would also be a bit problematic here because we just don't have a good answer to it right away. And it does have 2 items to get back right out of the gate. That is the third Flaversham. Bit unfortunate. So I don't believe that Hector currently has any clean answers to a card like that in hand. Obviously, Be Prepared is not really a great solution to this problem. Which means that more than likely, Saucekay is going to get to draw a lot of cards with this Flaversham.
Yeah, we do have a How Far I'll Go being the draw for turn.
Is that a Brawl and not a Be Prepared?
It does appear to be a Brawl, yes.
If it's a Brawl, we'll probably be alright here.
I mean, surely you can't have a 4th, right?
Surely there can't be a 4th. Deciding to just allow some additional card draw to maybe play a catch-up. One of these Brawls is going to go to the Inkwell, setting up Shift Sisu, or even just a hardcast Sisu, depending. I mean, look, I get it. We don't really have much that we can send to the Inkwell here, and if the play is just Brawl your thing, say go, that is not great when your opponent already has 8 cards in hand.
Yeah, both players choosing to progress the board here at a steady pace.
Look at the bottom 4 cards of our library.
The nail in the coffin for these Sapphire decks.
Run out a Fishbone Quill, use the Fishbone Quill, and probably immediately draw 2 cards with it. That makes sense to me. May as well use the Flaversham while you got it. We're working on the assumption that it's not long for this world.
Yeah, the foreshadowing is for sure here, as I believe we did pick up that big Sisu on the previous turn.
So unfortunately, we don't have enough to play the coil, ink, and then do the Sisu, which is what the ideal line would be for us. It is possible that what we're going to do instead is just sing with our Flaversham and do How Far I'll Go. And then we'll just shift a Sisu this turn. And then next turn we have an additional shift line if we want, but we also still can do the coil shift line or just cast one. Gives us a little bit more options, a little bit more information to work with here as well. All right, so we do have the shift. Now, this Sisu does not have evasive. So if we opt to quest, then we are offering the trade with the Scrooge McDuck here, which I think is okay. Because it sort of protects the Flabbersham a little bit. And we don't really care that much about this big Sisu. We just need to catch up on cards a little bit. So here's the Zeus.
I would opt for the trade as well, seeing as the Zeus is likely to be in the hand after drawing so many cards.
Yeah, they have a lot of cards. Like, we don't have the luxury of being slow with what we're doing. I think we kind of just have to commit to being okay with getting a little less advantage out of our stuff. But we can collect our 3 lore and at least get to the point of maybe closing out the game. So they decide to Tamatoa, Popsicle. And now it's on Ruby Sapphire to figure out how to not just lose to this crab. Now, it's not like Saucekay has a ton of items in play, especially for Sapphire Steel, but we know the reason why. It's because they've Flabbershammed 4 times this game already.
Yeah, looks like Hector is about to start doing coil stuff. Question is if he can get rid of this Tamatoa this turn, or...
Yeah, it depends on if we have either a Medusa or double coil, or something like a How Far I'll Go. Because it really needs to be some combination of those in order for this to work. Now, it does look like, I believe that's a Let It Go. I would not be surprised if instead we're just going to let it go the Tamatoa. I think we're going to draw first. Which is a little scary because it means that we don't have our coil anymore. But there are happy as clams in the deck somewhere, so we can find it again. Is that an ice block? No, that's just the Let It Go. Right. And then we run out the Vital Sphere, get in for our 1 with our Sisu. Now, notably, Hector is at 9. So, despite the, sort of lack of card advantage compared to what, Sapphire Steel's working with here, there's been a lot more lore pressure going on.
Yeah,
obviously,
when we shifted the big Sisu, the human Sisu, this 3-drop, has evasive, and it's just ticking away every single turn. It is easy to remove, but not by challenges on the side of Saucekay.
If Saucekay is playing Storm, which we saw strength in the first game, but if they're playing Storm, I would expect one to come down at some point to zap it. It's possible that they never drew one, but if at any point we've got one, I would imagine that's what's going to take care of it. Alright, double ink, 1 for sale, 1 for not sale. There is a Storm in hand. Just opts to put 4 damage and then send it back. Alright, now this is the Ruby turn to be able to clean up the board again and still continue to develop the board. Now there is another pretty clean answer to the crab, at least, in the coil, as long as we have enough cards to work with. Goes up to 10. Draws 2 cards. I think that makes sense here. The Vital Sphere, we don't really have enough resources to be able to be trading our characters with the Vital Sphere as well. We kind of need the cards more. We have enough ink to run out the popsicle first to get more information. Alright, so we do have a big Sisu.
We have options to remove the Tamatoa here, which has to be the priority for Hector in these situations.
I would think so. I don't believe that we have the ability to remove both. However, it should not be particularly difficult to remove at least one. I think debating on whether or not the shift makes more sense or just using Brawl here. Certainly want to keep that Flaversham, assuming the one that's in play right now is going to be taken out.
Yeah, Hector keeps fighting with his inner demons to ink this Hiram each turn.
I mean, I get it. The Maui could have taken out the Scrooge, but I don't think Scrooge is the real issue here. Yeah, now it's do we brawl or do we be more ink efficient and just shift? I think honestly I'm happier with a brawl, but I can appreciate the shift line just to get in more lore. But this does take our clock away with our evasive here.
I'm curious if Hector's logic here is protecting the Hiram from a challenge, you know, offering up the Sisu, saying, hey, you can take this Sisu, but I'll draw a couple more cards.
Sure. I could absolutely see that. Now, with only 2 willpower remaining, there are plenty of ways in Steel to deal 2 damage. I don't think it makes sense to banish the Popsicle to heal 2 here, because it doesn't really protect it from much. It protects it from some things, but like the challenge is still there. I just don't think it's worth losing a Popsicle over. I would rather just hold it for the Flaversham that we have in hand still.
And Scrooge McDuck giving Saucekay a look at the bottom 4 cards of his deck, as the card seems to do.
Does, of course. Couldn't imagine it any other way. We've only done that, like, 4 times this match already. Opts to heal nothing to be able to get a Popsicle back so that our Tamatoa can draw us a card. And another Haymaker. It's kind of just Haymaker after Haymaker. And this is one of the benefits of Sapphire Steel. It has so much card draw that it's able to keep deploying these big threats, and especially without multiple coils in play, Hector's just running out of resources to be able to deal with them without spending something like a Be Prepared.
Yeah, and we do see that Be Prepared comes out, but now is the clean slate for Saucekay. He can do whatever he wants to get ahead, and Dime plus Pete is the choice.
And gain 1. Now, I don't know if the Pete itself is something that you particularly care about. It does allow you to protect your Dime from something like Hideaway. It does not save it from something like Cusco, but it does make Hideaway not an out. It limits some of the options from Hector's side. How far I'll go, obviously, being cut off. Yes, it stops Be Prepared, but it's unlikely that Be Prepared would be cast to take care of a Pete here. Pirate's Life is another thing that kind of gets cut off. This would have been an okay turn to cast it. It's possible that what we're going to see is just a Shark.
So that's 13 ink on the side of Saucekay. I believe Hector was asking just to see what options his opponent had available.
Here goes another Maui. Run out the Shark. Maui is good and also not so good in a matchup like this. There are a few times where it can take something out, but most of the cards, you really want them not to be in play as long as it would need for them to be turned sideways. If they're questing, it's generally not great for you anyway. So this takes out the Flaversham with the Hades. And then the Shark gets hit with a Zeus. While normally reserved for Happy as a Clam Tamatoas, it does work just as well on Shark as it did in the previous sets.
Yeah, and we had a perfect ink there to activate the dime on top of all that, bringing Saucekay to 9, closing the gap on Hector here. And with, what is that, 7 items in play?
There's a lot with a lucky dime, so I believe it would be the 3rd Tamatoa, would be a pretty big gain of lore, almost enough if they have another item to just finish it. Quite do the math on it, but if nothing gets removed from the board, it wouldn't surprise me if that just closes it out.
We do see a Tala coming down, and I don't think Hector's seeing the cards he's looking for at this moment.
Alright, got Tala. Tala gave us a Visions here. I believe that this is a Medusa. Medusa taking out Hades. Also another classic. Here's our Sapphire Coil issue. We don't have infinite cards, so this coil is getting much worse. So we play a Tipo as a body, ink nothing, with the intention of adding additional lore pressure to the board.
Oh,
because with this dime...
Sideways. Oh.
Oof, that's the second one. And I believe that that is the last card in hand. So that was a dime off the top for Sapphire Steel. Really, at this point, it's... Can you get to 20 this turn? And if not, is there a crab on top? Or a Sisu?
Yeah, Vision's making it likely for Hector to find an answer here. It does look like a 2-turn clock, though, so Saucekay might have 2 peaks at the top of the deck.
I would say that it is more likely that they're going to want to try and shore this up this turn. I wouldn't want to give them... I would think that Hector's trying to set it up so that it's just one more turn. Yeah, so here's a Shark. So then if the Pete quests, it is rough, or if there's any additional actions like this How Far I'll Go, does gain us an additional 1. So if one of those is a Pirate's Life... Couldn't tell if that was double B prep or a Pirate's Life and a B prep. I suspect we'll take out the Pete then if it's not. If it is Pirate's Life in hand, I would expect the Tipo and the Medusa to sing Pirate's Life here. It is Pirate's Life. So I'm imagining that we... Oh, right. We don't need to use both of them. We only need to use one. Sorry. I forgot she costs 6. So long since we've seen a Medusa in play that forgot she can just sing it. So it's this, then we'll challenge, put 1 damage, and then we'll go up to 18. And it's still the same. If it's a crab, it's over. Yeah. It's still kind of the same. Like, it really doesn't matter. It's either you win this turn, or you just hope that you dodge a 3. Like, there's multiple crabs. If they have aerial, that would be an option.
Yeah, players seeming to opt out of aerial. Well, a couple.
It does not look like there was an aerial.
These players.
Yeah, I saw Saucekay flip through the list a little bit. There was no aerial in there, so it was essentially a couple of dimes or kind of bust there. Once the Shark came down and the Pirate's Life.
Yeah, we saw Cogsworth here on the screen enter the Inkwell a couple times for Saucekay. I'm sure that shored up a few of the aggro matchups. I think we saw Let It Go on both sides.
The Let It Go, generally very good. The Cogsworth, certainly not for this matchup, but it's very good in the mirror. given that all of the removal that Steel has to offer is generally pretty terrible when there's a Cogsworth in play. Giving that one resist makes all of your characters just survive effectively everything. At best, you're trying to 2 or 3 for 1 yourself to remove anything. We've been seeing a lot of Hades this weekend, which I like quite a bit.
Yeah, Hades has been the top end tech for a lot of these Sapphire Steel matchups, letting them take care of, it's their version of Maleficent Dragon. We saw the downside in that last game where Medusa was able to just take it out on the back.
Yeah, but being that it only costs 7, it certainly helps a lot. It's very castable at 7 and is a good removal plus threat. It helps increase your density of characters for something like Lucky Dime. As we saw towards the end there were 2 dimes in play, but essentially no characters. So something like Hades over perhaps Let It Go or just another removal spell, it's a character as well. So it allows you to sort of double dip a little bit. Even if it is a little more vulnerable to things like Medusa, though Medusa has kind of fallen out of favor. Coil plus perhaps a Sisu or a Brawl is what you would expect to see a little bit more frequently, I would think. But not in this case. The Medusa looked pretty good there.
Yeah, congratulations again to Hector here, winning in round 7. This is the final round of Swiss for today. So if you want more Lorcana action, join us here tomorrow, 10 EDT. We will have 2 more Swiss rounds, round 8 and 9, followed by the top 8. You won't want to miss it. Jebas, it was great casting with you today, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yeah, bright and early.